Just 20 years ago, it was pretty common to see black and yellow bumblebees pollinating flowers all around. Now, though, for the first time ever, the bumblebee will be placed on the endangered species list. Beekeepers have been complaining for years about the mass die-off of the bees. So why is it happening? To talk more about it, we're joined now by Mark Fogel, a beekeeper and the director of research at Greenpeace. Thanks for being here, Mr. Fogel. Can you start by explaining why the bumblebee is so important and how significant it is in terms of human survival?
Well, bumblebees, like all bees, are pollinators. And so we need bees and other pollinators like butterflies and birds to get germplasm, really allow plants to have sex with each other. So male and female plants can cross-pollinate, and therefore we get fruit. About a third of the fruits that we eat in the U.S. are pollinated by honeybees, the bees that are taken around by beekeepers who do that. But there are many other pollinators as well, including bumblebees.
You don't realize what you're really stepping on.
We try to watch out for them because we know they're there.
Shells and seaweed, what people visiting Loudermilk Beach in Naples expect to see wash up in the waves. But recently, something more painful is rolling in with every wave.
It's just really between the water and the sand.
They're not wasps, they're nice honeybees.
Bees aren't buzzing around the park's sticky trash cans or concession stand. Instead, they're squirming around or laying lifeless on the sand.
I've been stung a couple of times, and at first I didn't know what it was, but I realized, and then I had an allergic reaction. I was like in this area. It was so painful. My God, yeah.
Martha Duff says her painful sting is making her more conscious of where her daughter plays.
It really was kind of worrying, especially that I have a baby. I worry about her running up and down the beach.
Felice Petty isn't planning on going near the water's edge.
Right where he stepped on it.
After her husband stepped on a bee.
All of a sudden he went, ow! And I had to pull the stinger out. My concern is getting stung because I am allergic.
The city of Naples says crews are investigating the problem and will have staff out at the beach Tuesday working to get to the bottom of visitors' questions.
Why are there bees? Where are they coming from? And why are they in a very specific area in the beach?
According to a recent report, 40% of the world's smallest pollinators, like butterflies and bees, are at great risk of extinction. In response to this alarming situation, scientists are looking into the idea of creating an army of miniature drones to fill the gap. So far, the technology is very basic, with each drone having to be controlled manually. However, tests so far have shown the promise of success, and researchers say that eventually the drones could one day learn to fly on their own, using GPS and artificial intelligence. While this may prove a measure that could help the pollination situation, it still doesn't account for the bee's ability to manufacture honey, another vital ecology contribution of the bee.
A plague of vast proportions. Countless locusts have swarmed Bolivia, causing the government to raise the alarm.
We have declared a state of emergency. We have decided to issue a supreme decree.
The arrival of these unwelcome visitors happened a week ago near Santa Cruz. They've already wiped out almost 1,100 hectares of corn, peanut, and soybeans. Authorities are warning that the locusts could destroy the country's main agricultural region, which supplies more than 80% of Bolivia's food.
People are very scared here by the locusts. These bugs have done a lot of damage, eating all the production of maize, beans, squash, and watermelons. Also yucca production. All this production was destroyed.
The government says fumigation must begin straight away. Pesticides are being sprayed on the ground and in the skies. But even with all these efforts, the locusts are spreading quickly. The question is, how much damage will they do before they're eradicated?
An invasive caterpillar species is spreading across Africa and devastating crops. The fall armyworm, native to North and South America, appeared in Africa for the first time last year. Scientists say it likely arrived on commercial airliners. Non-native armyworms are now spreading rapidly. They've already been confirmed in countries across southern and western Africa. They pose a major threat to agriculture. Maize, an important staple across much of Africa, is especially vulnerable. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization says fall armyworms have destroyed up to 73% of crops in some areas. Fall armyworms are also difficult to control using pesticides. In a statement released Monday, February 6th, the Center for Agriculture and Biosciences International said the caterpillar could, quote, spread to tropical Asia and the Mediterranean in the next few years. The center points out that this would be a major threat to agriculture worldwide.
Time is running out for these pilot whales. Volunteers do whatever they can to save the mammals, keeping them warm and wet before trying to get them back out to sea.
I was here first thing this morning, and there was a small group of us, and essentially we went out and saw one of the biggest strainings I've ever seen.
There's a lot of death there, which is a sad thing, but hey, if we can get some of them out, then it's got to be a good thing.
More than 400 whales beached themselves in Golden Bay on New Zealand's South Island on Thursday. Conservationists decided that a rescue in the dark would have been too dangerous. By morning, about 3/4 of the creatures had died.
Yeah, this is the third largest mass stranding that we've recorded in our history, and so it's a very large one. Logistically, it's a massive undertaking.
Scientists have different theories as to why whales become stranded. Illness or old age could result in navigational errors. Others might be attempting to help a beached member of the pod. This instinct perhaps coming to play as the refloated whales try to swim back to shore. The human chain of volunteers hopes to stop them becoming stranded again.
First it was drought, then came the rain and cold and death. The community of Minas Corral is desperate. Their precious alpacas are dying.
I had at least 100 alpacas. More than 30 have died. I don't know. How am I going to live?
Without water and food, thousands of alpacas in Peru have been dying since August. They still are, but now the little ones are most affected. The rain brought grass, but the adults are still weak and can't milk the newborns. Just hours after this baby alpaca died, its mother can't get away from it. Ricardo Lima says he lost 40 alpacas. Now he has these skins left to sell.
Nobody wants to buy this. It's worth nothing because the fiber is too short. I'm 76 years old. I can't go out to find another job.
Community leaders say most people here have lost 1/3 of their flocks.
The alpaca is a key component of the economy of thousands of families. The livelihoods of most of them depend solely on these animals.
But at 4,800 meters above sea level, almost nothing grows here. All the villagers of Minas Corral are herders, or alpaqueros as they're known here. On average, families in Peru's highlands own 200 alpacas. They are some of the few animals that can live at such high altitudes. 38-year-old Segundino Lima represents nearly 4,000 families of alpaqueros in this region. He says he's been going from one village to the next. He says more than 100,000 alpacas have died.
I am so sad to see how families depend on this. My heart hurts, and I think the government must especially look at what's going on, because until now there is no support.
Regional authorities say they've asked the government for more than $5 million to help these communities. They're planning to send medicine for the sick animals, but the money has yet to arrive. But for these families, the damage is done. They can only shear these animals once a year, and they say their loss now will have an impact for years.
This seemingly unending drought is taking a heavy toll. Thousands of livestock have perished in the 6 months that the rains have failed to come, and the threat of hunger and malnutrition is creeping nearer. Many nomadic pastoralists here in Marsabit are on the verge of losing everything. This is some of the 550 livestock that have died in the last couple of days, and for herders like Robert, this is a huge portion of their entire means of survival gone. Marsabit County is one of the worst affected parts of the country. Herders are having to travel days at a time to find any pasture for their animals.
We've been here for the past 6 months. Many of our animals have died. We're now dependent on water and food from the government.
Breeding livestock is a deeply entrenched practice in this region. It's also a significant part of the local economy. But the frequency and severity of drought here have made nomadic pastoralism tougher. Few, though, feel they have an alternative.
We're pastoralists. Our work is to look after animals. We weren't educated and we don't know how to do business. We need advice and guidance on what else we could do. For now, we simply survive off our animals.
We need to invest in market and market structures. If we're able to sell this livestock at competitive prices, definitely people will be selling. That means now, we'll be keeping livestock not for the sake of it, but we'll be keeping livestock for a commercial reason. Creation of awareness or education so that they can value the world they have and appreciate that rather than keeping 600 goats, you can still keep a fraction of it, but also realize the same benefits. This is ongoing.
The Kenya Red Cross recently extended its cash transfer program to Marsabit to help hundreds of households preserve their livestock and keep malnutrition at bay. But what was always a difficult but viable way of life is slowly becoming harder to bear.
For his entire life, Sabuku Machaka, like generations of his family before him, has been living off this land. When I met him in 2016, his entire maize crop had been ruined by the drought. He had never seen anything like it before, but he acknowledged this area has been getting less rainfall with each passing year. He may not know it by name, but he's seeing the impact of climate change. To rescue millions of farmers locally and in the region, researchers have been trying to develop new seed varieties that withstand drought.
For the last 5 years, we've been testing new hybrids for maize, new open pollinated varieties, and we have realized that these hybrids, they are yielding almost double compared to what farmers are growing under the difficult heat and drought conditions. So we are trying to scale them up through seed companies.
Farmers that have ignored some of the skeptics are reaping the benefits of the new hybrids.
People said to me, "You're wasting time, you're playing games on the land." But after 3 years, we started to see the difference. The seed we have been using under the trial has a higher yield and better tasting maize meal.
Apart from science, there are solutions much closer to home. Conservation farming techniques are being adapted and improved on.
Now you have got to come up with innovations like what other farmers are doing. You dig in between your rows at an interval of about 15 to 20 meters. You dig a hole which is maybe 60 centimeters wide and about 2 meters long, and then about 1 meter deep, and then you put mulch in so that when the water gets in, it is trapped into that hole, and because of the mulch, it reduces evaporation of the water, and most of it is actually encouraged to penetrate into the field, so as a result your plants benefit.
Cognizant that rain-fed agriculture alone is no longer viable, government is planning to build new dams and resuscitate old irrigation infrastructure. That would ensure all year-round production, helping to give what has traditionally been subsistence farming commercial value. Thousands of farmers are also receiving inputs as part of a Command Agriculture program that's aiming to increase production of the staple maize to 2 million metric tons this year.
In this remote village, images of dusty paddocks and flies buzzing over carcasses. And not far from here, a herder is watering his animals, trying to salvage what remains of his herd, as a devastating drought continues to displace thousands in several parts of Somalia and Ethiopia. These displaced families shelter under this tree near Banderbela, in the Puntland state of northeastern Somalia, after walking for days with their animals. More than 25,000 drought-affected persons have arrived here over the past months, some from Somaliland, Puntland, central Somalia, as well as pastoralists from neighboring Ethiopia.
We have been greatly affected in the ongoing drought. There is no water, there is no food, we have lost our animals. We need immediate aid assistance from the relevant agencies.
Neither Puntland nor Somaliland has come to our rescue. We've lost almost all our animals. 2 women and 2 children have died as a result. There's no clean drinking water. The government and local administration have both forgotten us.
Several UN agencies are already warning that famine could soon be a reality in some of the vast drought-stricken regions of Somalia, with nearly 500,000 people, almost half of the country's population, already facing food insecurity.
The picture is likely to become even bleaker. The levels of humanitarian suffering in this country, triggered by protracted conflict, seasonal shocks and disease outbreaks, are typically hard to bear. But the impact of this drought represents a threat of a different scale and magnitude.
In northern Puntland and Somaliland regions, the 2 of the worst affected areas, inadequate rainfall and lack of water has wiped out crops and killed livestock. The pastoral communities in this village have been forced to relocate and sell their livestock in major towns and borrow food and money for survival.
Drought victims are flocking into IDP camps, having lost their livelihoods, having lost their animals, having no other place to go than to the cities. And these are the lucky ones arriving on trucks. But there are many more people that remain behind without any livelihoods and are likely to come in over the next few months in either a worse state or not at all.
Meanwhile, authorities are engaging donors in efforts to address the country's protracted humanitarian crisis that's threatening to displace more in south-central regions. Somalia experienced the worst famine of the 21st century in 2011, affecting an estimated 4 million people. The famine resulted in the loss of more than 250,000 lives, and with Somalia's main focus on the upcoming presidential vote on 8th February, experts warn that the humanitarian situation in the East African nation might worsen in the coming days.
Lots of kids hate vegetables. Now, children in the Eurozone may be in luck. There's a vegetable shortage rolling across parts of Northern Europe, making it harder for shoppers to get their hands on fresh produce. Veggies like spinach and zucchini started vanishing from grocery store shelves across Great Britain in early January. 4 of Britain's biggest grocery chains have even started to ration iceberg lettuce. Meanwhile, broccoli, cauliflower, eggplant, peppers, and cabbage are in short supply in Denmark, France, and the Netherlands. Bad weather in a corner of Spain that supplies much of Europe in the colder months is largely to blame for the shortage. In Germany, the price of fresh vegetables jumped more than 18% in December. The UK grocery chain Sainsbury's is charging around $1.75 for a head of lettuce, more than 3 times the price in pre-shortage days. In a scramble for substitutes, the BBC recently published a guide on how to cope, encouraging shoppers to switch to kale. But Britons are still craving lettuce on their burgers and salads. Says a spokesman for the British Leafy Salads Association, salad leaves are the sexiest they've ever been.
According to a recent report, scientists fear that spillback of the Zika virus into monkeys in South America may raise the risk of future human outbreaks. In areas where Zika outbreaks have been most prevalent among humans and mosquitoes, the virus may be transmitted to wild primates. Barbara Hahn, a disease ecologist at the Carey Institute of Ecosystem Studies, said that if the disease becomes established in monkeys or other wild primates, the animals may serve as reservoirs for potential future outbreaks. This would make it nearly impossible to eliminate the virus. Findings have shown that monkeys in Brazil have already been found carrying Zika virus, which matches the human strain, showing that spillback has already started.